God, we thank you for an opportunity to speak about the hearts of those who sometimes cannot fight for themselves. Thank you for this moment to be able to share our hearts with the president and his administration. Dr. King said, we cannot influence a table that we are not seated at. And so we pray that this conversation will be fruitful and productive and honoring of the best traditions of this nation.
How many times did you see former presidents praying like that? And I love that moment. That was President Trump on Wednesday. He held a meeting with inner-city religious leaders where several of the pastors expressed support for President Trump's policies, especially this new push for prison and sentencing reform. Well, that actually did not go over well with some congregants of these pastors who say Trump has not been good for the black community despite a record low unemployment rate. Joining me now are two pastors who attended that event, Pastor Darrell Scott, founder of the New Spirit Revival Center in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, and Pastor Van Moody of the Worship Center Christian Church in Birmingham, Alabama, along with Democratic strategist Antoine Seawright from New York. It's great to have all of you on tonight. Let's start with you, Pastor Van Moody. You received some blowback after being at the White House on Wednesday. Tell us about that.
Well, yes, I did receive a tremendous amount of blowback, a lot of vitriol, a lot of name-calling, a number of individuals that have been a part of a number of things that I've done, books that I've written, conferences and other ministry opportunities have said that they're leaving, and many people expressed a lot of anger and frustration because I was there, but also because one of the comments that I made, I think, was misunderstood and taken out of context when I thanked President Trump for him having a heart for all people as it relates to this issue of prison reform and workforce development. So it's been quite a challenge, but once again, I think the purpose of trying to make a difference in the lives of people that are marginalized and voiceless is so much bigger than personal attack and political ideology, and that's why I went in the first place.
Well, how ironic that we have a president who seems very open to taking on this very complicated issue of prison reform, ending this scourge of recidivism, where in federal prisons about 76% of the current federal prison population have already served time. They want to put an end to that so people can rejoin communities, get jobs, be retrained, have a job skill. And it's a big and heavy lift, but I think they're going to get this done, and it takes everybody to do this. And Pastor Scott, I'd like you to chime in here because I think it's so brave that Pastor Van Moody came to the White House. I can't believe I have to describe it as brave, but it is brave in this society that we live in today.
Yes, I mean, he took a bold step, and I commend and applaud him and the other pastors, my other colleagues, for coming as well. But listen, it's time to put those identity politics aside, put this pettiness aside, try to suppress this black-white divide that the left is trying to promulgate in this country, and sit down and have some meaningful, productive dialogue that can lead to some meaningful, productive change in this country. The president has a heart for prison reform. I've been working with him on this for over a year. The president, Jared Kushner, criminal justice reform is another issue that is on the president's heart that he has a concern about. And we've had many different discussions concerning this, and urban revitalization. I'm working with him on the urban revitalization issues. We're going to endeavor to have the most ambitious public-private partnership regarding urban revitalization in American history. I said it at the meeting. People took me to task. I said this is going to be, President Trump has the potential to be the most pro-black president in my lifetime, because all of the presidents, and I've lived under 12 different presidents, he's the 12th one. The prior 11 were all reactive towards the black community. Even our great icons, Johnson and Kennedy, that they say are holding up as civil rights icons, they were reactive towards social upheaval. President Trump is being proactive towards the black community.
Let's get Antoine's.
He's doing these things that's great.
Let's get Antoine's response. You heard what the pastor just said. Trump could be the most pro-black president in modern history. Your thought?
I think that's disappointing. And keep in mind, I'm not a pastor. But I grew up, I'm a fourth generation AME. I grew up in the church. I know a little bit about leadership. My uncle was the 133rd elected AME bishop in the AME church. And what I do know is that when a pastor steps out of the pulpit or in the pulpit, they represent the hearts and minds of the entire congregation. And what we know about this president from the time before when he was running for president up until now, he has not had the best interests of African Americans
how do you say that,
on the front line.
How do you say that with the results?
If you look at his rhetoric, if you look at some of the things his administration has done, if you look at some of the policy stance he has taken, whether it's voter suppression, whether it's mandatory, absolutely. Whether it's mandatory, all the things that this president has done, whether he's talking about S-hole countries, whether he's called Mexicans, rapists, and thugs. If you look at all those issues, this president
you're throwing out a lot of stuff. Half of it, or most of it, is misstated or misrepresented.
This president has never had the interests of African Americans, and he campaigned on the issue that he wanted to undo everything Barack Obama had done. This was the guy who started the birther movement. And so you can say what you want. Listen, I'm not here to judge these pastors.
You're giving a speech. Speeches don't work on cable television.
I'm not trying to give a speech. I'm clearly articulating why I disagree with these pastors.
Yeah, well, it's bumper sticker mentality. Pastor Moody, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people have to understand is, for me as a faith leader, I'm called to something much higher than politics and egos and ideology. And for me, this was very simple. There are a number of individuals that are voiceless and disenfranchised in the prison population. African Americans, for an example, make up 12 to 13% of the American population, but nearly 35% of the prison population. And so for me, it's not a left issue, it's not a right issue. It is how can we help issue and how can we continue to model the ethic of Jesus Christ. And it is not about sacrificing people who are in... Exactly, but it is not about, if we're going to do this, we've got to set aside petty politics, we've got to put our egos aside, and we've also got to be able to find commonality between this issue of what you like and what I don't like. I believe that even if
we're talking about Donald Trump here, you do know that, right?
But wait a second, and I talk about in my op-ed piece, I've been on record of voicing some issues that I've had with this administration, but I still believe that we ought to be able to find commonality to work for the good of other people. We have got to move beyond who we like, who we don't like, because there are lives that are swaying in the balance.
It's never been about who we don't like or do like. What this is about is working in a bipartisan way if we really want to do that, to get something done.
I'm glad you said that, because the first step back, wait a minute, let me jump in. I'm glad you said that.
We got two faith leaders and we got a political person. And hold on, guys, all of you.
Okay.
What I find, and this is interesting because I hear this on my radio show all the time, I learn more by listening to people who are not in politics and not pundits like myself. I learn more from listening to other people, people of faith, people in business, than I do from people who are in that narrow lane of politics, because you're living the real life. So the faith, and Antoine, I'm not trying to put down.
That's like saying I don't live the real life, Laura.
I'm not trying to put down what you say. I'm just saying sometimes when you take it out of politics and you give it over to a higher power, good things can happen. Not always, but good things can happen. And I want to now allow Pastor Scott to speak. Go ahead.
Listen, gentlemen such as Anton, whatever your name is, these guys.
It's Antoine Seawright. Don't disrespect me on the air, Pastor. I was respectful to you.
I didn't know your name, so I said whatever it is.
It's Antoine Seawright. So let me tell you
everybody be
okay,
nice.
Anton Seawright, duly noted. Listen, you guys would rather this country fail than Trump succeed.
Who are you
talking about being bipartisan? You. Okay, you then. I'll put it on you. You're talking about Donald Trump personally. You would rather the country fail than work together for Donald Trump to succeed. We're sitting there talking about prison reform to help prisoners, and you're upset that people went in the room with him.
I'm not upset. I'm not upset that people went in the room.
Guys, we're out of time. We're out of time, but we're going to be covering prison reform for, I think a couple of months at least, and it looks like we're going to actually accomplish something. We're going to be bringing you back. Great segment. Thank you so much.